Well, I have some potentially excellent news today. There has been called now a ceasefire in the Yemen war. This hopefully will at least pause the greatest humanitarian tragedy and disaster on the face of the planet for a little while. Now, of course, I don't think that this ceasefire will do a whole lot to make things better in Yemen yet, but maybe things will stop getting worse for at least a little while. Now, from what I understand, this is not a total ceasefire. This is just sort of a trial run of a ceasefire, so they're doing it in certain areas, kind of like how McDonald's this week is doing a trial run of Beyond Meat in a bunch of McDonald's locations, but not everywhere. And so there are supposed to be 4 areas now where the Saudis have told the Houthis that, hey, we're not going to fight you anymore if you don't come at us. Which, of course, since the Houthis never attacked Saudi Arabia to begin with, that should be pretty easy to achieve. Now, this comes just a little while after the Houthis offered the Saudis a ceasefire after the whole Saudi Aramco attack, in which the Houthis claimed responsibility for, but was blamed on Iran. And at the time, I didn't think that the Houthis proposing a ceasefire, I thought it was just sort of a gesture. I didn't think it would actually, come to fruition. But here we are now. The Saudis have accepted their invitation, and they seem like they actually want to de-escalate things a little bit. Now, why the sudden change of heart, you might ask? Well, I think it's pretty clear that it has something to do with that Saudi Aramco attack, the one that the Houthis claim responsibility for, but which has been blamed on Iran. If the Saudis really think that Iran is behind this, which again I don't know either way, we can only rely on the information that the two sides are giving us, and you never know who could be telling the truth or to what extent they're both lying. But if the Saudis really think that Iran did it, which is quite possible, well then they're not going to want to be focusing all their attention on fighting the Houthis in Yemen, since that's more of a vanity thing. The only reason why Saudi Arabia invaded Yemen was because Mohammed bin Salman wanted to have some big foreign policy victory. He wanted to go to war and be a triumphant hero of the country, which of course has totally backfired. So they have no real vital national security interest in fighting the Houthis. But if it comes down to it, and there might in fact be a war with Iran, Saudi Arabia doesn't want to be fighting a two-front war. They don't want to have to be dealing with the Houthis and Iran. They'd rather neutralize the Houthis and then turn their attention towards Iran. Of course, not that the Saudis can do much about Iran anyway. The Saudis can't defend themselves. If Iran wanted to, they could probably not conquer all of Saudi Arabia, but they could certainly, destroy the country. To a certain extent, it'd be mutually assured destruction, even if the U.S. didn't intervene, because, the Saudis, with the missiles that they have, should be able to blow up the Iranian oil infrastructure, especially there's an island out in the Gulf that processes a lot of their oil, and that would cripple the Iranian economy. But I'm saying just in terms of military might, the Saudis would not be able to hold out against Iran. So, even if they do have U.S. help, which they would in the case of any war, they don't want to be having to deal with the Houthis and have their air forces tied up there. They want to be able to focus their complete, undivided attention on whatever's going on with Iran. Now, things are going somewhat as I had predicted before. Remember, I said that I thought that the UN General Assembly would decide in what direction we're going as far as this whole potential Iran war goes. And things at the UNGA didn't go great. There really was no contact made between the Americans and the president of Iran. So despite Boris Johnson and Emmanuel Macron of Britain and France, respectively, trying to get the Iranians to sit down with the Americans, they're kind of playing hardball, and they didn't really have any interest. So there was no de-escalation this week at the UNGA. And so I think it's in light of that the Saudis now want to de-escalate in Yemen, because they see that, hey, we're walking down this road. And I'm not saying that we're going to necessarily reach the destination of a war. It's still not clear to me at all if that's the case. But the Saudis are preparing for that possibility. Now, in other Yemen news, from what I understand, the Southern Transition Council, which was allied with the quote-unquote Saudi-led coalition. They not only did they seize Aden, the former capital of South Yemen, recently, but it seems as though they've actually managed to hold on to Aden, which is an important city in Yemen. And I'm not entirely sure if the Saudi ceasefire with the Houthis is also going to apply to the Southern Transition Council, because I don't think, even though the UAE, I believe, is still backing the secessionists, I don't think necessarily that the Saudis are very much in favor of what they're doing. But perhaps the Saudis at this point just don't care, because, you know, sure, it's a fiction that they're ever going to put Hadi back in charge in Sana'a to control the whole country. So perhaps the Saudis are beginning to resign themselves to the idea that there could be another successor state to the old communist South Yemen. So if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.